Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we sit down to do one of these, we're trying to connect a few dots, maybe uncover a hidden trend or decode some complex new tech. But today feels a little different.
It really does. Because today isn't just about connecting dots. It's about standing at the base of a mountain and trying to see the summit.
That is the perfect image, a mountain that stood right in the middle of American culture for, 20, 30 years? We're talking about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yes, we are.
And looking at the stack of research we have here, biographies, old game logs, cultural histories, even medical journals, it is frankly exhausting just to read the resume out loud.
I mean, where do you even start?
6 MVPs, 6 championships, a scoring record that stood for 39 years.
39 years. And that record, 38,387 points. It wasn't just a number on a page, it was on. It was considered unbreakable.
Completely.
It stood from 1984 until LeBron James finally climbed it in 2023. That's almost 4 decades of the entire basketball world just saying, nope, nobody else comes close.
Exactly. But the mission for this deep dive isn't just to, list stats. If we just read the back of a trading card, we'd be done in 5 minutes. And frankly, you could just Wikipedia that.
Right.
The goal here is to understand the person who put up those numbers. Because when you look at Kareem, you're looking at someone who lived 3 or 4 different lives in the span of one.
That is the key insight. You have the shy, awkward kid from Harlem. You have the angry young militant. You have the pop culture icon fighting Bruce Lee in a movie.
And you have the intellectual historian writing about the Harlem Renaissance.
Right. And the activist. You cannot tell the story of one without all the others.
But you also can't tell it without talking about the unsexy nature of his game.
Skyhook.
The skyhook. It is arguably the most efficient, deadliest weapon in the history of the sport, and yet nobody does it anymore. It wasn't flashy, it was just inevitable.
Inevitable is the word. So let's unpack this life. We have to go back to the very beginning. And when I say beginning, I mean even the birth records are setting precedents.
They really are. Born Ferdinand Lew Alcindor Jr., Harlem, 1947. And get this, he was 22.5 inches long at birth.
That is a massive baby.
It's enormous, 12 pounds, 11 ounces. The doctors were probably shocked, and it just kept going. By the time he was 9 years old, he was 5'8".
5'8"? At 9? I mean, what does that even look like? I think I was still struggling to reach the cookie jar on the counter at 9.
It must have been so alienating. And by 8th grade, he's 6'8", and he can already dunk a basketball.
So you'd think, okay, this is where the story is, and he was the king of the playground, and life was glorious.
Yeah.
But the sources paint a much, much darker picture of his youth in the Dyckman Street projects.
Yeah, this is where the nuance really comes in. You'd think winning the genetic lottery makes life easy. But he was, by his own account, deeply depressed as a teenager.
Imagine being that physically conspicuous in a world that demands conformity.
Yeah.
You can't hide, you can't just blend in. He talked about the stares, the comments. He was a physical outlier in a world that didn't let him just be a kid.
He described it later as feeling like a target every time he stepped outside. So basketball wasn't just a game he was good at. It was a refuge.
It was the one place where being the tower made sense. Which brings us to Power Memorial Academy. That's where the legend really starts to build. They literally called him the Tower from Power.
Which sounds like a comic book villain, but I love it.
It fits, though. He led that high school team to a 71-game winning streak.
71 games.
They won the National High School Championship when he was a sophomore and a junior. He scored 2,067 points, which was a New York City record at the time. It was just total dominance.
But there was a shadow there, too. I was reading about his relationship with his high school coach, Jack Donahue. This seems like a really critical turning point for his worldview.
It is the pivotal moment of his adolescence. Donahue was a father figure in some ways, but it was a strained relationship. And it culminated in this really ugly incident during Kareem's senior year.
What happened?
During a halftime speech, Donahue, trying to, motivate him, he used a racial slur.
Wow, trying to motivate him.
Yeah. I mean, it was a different time, but even then, it shattered the trust. For a young Ferdinand Alcindor, this was a massive wake-up call.
About racial politics.
Exactly. You have to remember, this is the mid-'60s. The Harlem riots of 1964 are happening right outside his door. He said later that the combination of what he saw on the streets and that betrayal by his coach, it made him realize who he had to be.
And he had this quote, right?
He famously said, "I was going to be black rage personified, black power in the flesh." That's a heavy thing for a teenager to decide.
So he carries that heaviness, that awareness with him as he heads to college.
Right.
The recruitment process for him, I mean, everybody wanted him.
Everyone. It was the biggest recruitment war since Wilt Chamberlain. The Harlem Globetrotters even offered him a massive contract right out of high school just to get him.
But he chose UCLA, he chose the West Coast, and the legendary John Wooden.
He did. And this brings us to one of my absolute favorite statistics in sports history. And it isn't even a varsity stat.
Is this the freshman game story? I love this story.
It is. So back then, NCAA rules prohibited freshmen from playing on the varsity team. It didn't matter how good you were, you sat on the freshman squad.
Right.
So every year, UCLA would have a preseason scrimmage, the freshmen versus the varsity. Now, keep in mind, the varsity team was the two-time defending national champions.
The literal best team in the entire country.
No, the best team in the country. And the freshman team, led by Alcindor, went out and beat them 75-60.
That is, I mean, that's just embarrassing for the champ.
It was catastrophic for their egos.
Yeah.
Alcindor had 31 points and 21 rebounds against the best players in college basketball. The press basically wrote, well, UCLA is great, but the varsity is currently the second best team on its own campus.
That is wild. And it just kept going. Right. When he finally plays for the varsity his sophomore year, he scores 56 points in his debut.
56, which is still an NCAA record for a debut. He was so dominant, so completely overwhelming, that the NCAA actually panicked. They literally changed the rule book because of him.
The Alcindor rule.
Yeah. Exactly. After the 1967 season, the NCAA banned the dunk.
They banned the dunk, the entire move.
The entire move. They claimed it was about skill and integrity and preventing injuries, but everybody knew it was about stopping Lew Alcindor.
Imagine being so good they make a law against your favorite move. It's like telling Superman he's not allowed to fly anymore.
But here is the irony, and this connects to the bigger picture of his entire career. That ban backfired spectacularly.
Oh, so?
Because he couldn't just dunk anymore. He couldn't just power over people. He had to develop finesse. He had to perfect a shot that couldn't be blocked, but wasn't a dunk.
The hook shot.
Precisely. He had learned the basics of it in grade school, doing the mic and drill left hand, right hand, over and over. But at UCLA, forced by this new rule, he perfected the release point. He started releasing it higher and higher, almost at the apex of his jump.
So by banning the dunk.
By banning the dunk, the NCAA inadvertently created the most unstoppable weapon in the history of basketball.
It's the ultimate, be careful what you wish for. But he wasn't totally invincible at UCLA. We have to talk about the game of the century.
Oh, yeah. 1968, the Astrodome in Houston. Over 52,000 fans. This was the first primetime, nationally televised college game. It was a massive event. Alcindor versus Elvin Hayes of Houston.
And UCLA lost.
They did. 71-69. It snapped their 47-game winning streak. But the context here is everything. Alcindor was playing with a scratched cornea.
A scratched cornea? That sounds excruciating. How did that even happen?
It's a recurring theme in his life, actually. His eyes were just huge targets because he was so tall. People's hands are always up in his face. In that game, he said he has zero peripheral vision on his left side. He shot 4 of 18 from the field, which for him was a disaster.
But they got revenge, right?
Oh, absolutely. They met again in the NCAA tournament that same year. A healthy Alcindor just destroyed Houston. The final score was 101-69. He held Elvin Hayes, who was a superstar, to just 10 points. It was a complete demolition.
So he conquers college. 3 titles, 3 Player of the Year awards. But off the court, things are heating up. 1968 is a volatile year in America, and the Olympics are coming up in Mexico City.
And he boycotted them. This was a massive decision. He refused to try out for the U.S. Olympic team.
What was his reasoning? I mean, that's a guaranteed gold medal he's giving up.
He was very clear about it. He gave this incredible quote, "I'm trying to point out to the world the futility of winning the gold medal for this country and then coming back to live under oppression."
That is a massive statement for a college kid to make.
It is, and it really set the tone for his entry into the pros. He wasn't just an athlete, he was a man of conviction. He was willing to be unpopular if it meant being right.
So let's move to the pros. 1969, the NBA draft, and honestly, the fate of the league hung on a literal coin toss.
It did. The Milwaukee Bucks were a brand new franchise, only in their second season. They had the worst record in the East. The Phoenix Suns had the worst in the West, so they flipped a coin for the #1 pick.
And Milwaukee won.
Milwaukee won. It changed the course of their franchise forever, but it almost didn't happen right. But ABA, the rival league, was trying to get him too.
The New York Nets, specifically.
Right. The Nets drafted him in the ABA. They wanted him bad. He was a New York icon. But Alcindor did something very characteristic of him. He hated the gamesmanship of negotiation. He hated feeling like property.
He called it the flesh peddler vibe.
Exactly. So he told both teams, I will accept one offer. No bidding war. Give me your best number and I'll decide.
Wow. That's principle.
It is. He felt a bidding war was degrading. So the Bucks came in with a strong offer, $1.4 million. The Nets, thinking they had the hometown advantage, tried to lowball him initially.
Big mistake.
Huge. When he accepted the Bucks' offer, the Nets panicked and tried to come back with this massive offer of $3.25 million.
Whoa, that's more than double.
And he said no. He'd given his word. He was going to Milwaukee.
That is almost unheard of today. So he goes to Milwaukee, of all places. Rookie of the year, obviously. But year 2, that's when things get truly scary for the rest of the league.
The Bucks make a trade and acquire the Big O, Oscar Robertson.
A legend.
An absolute legend. He was past his prime, but he was still brilliant, and he was exactly the veteran point guard they needed. He and Alcindor clicked immediately. They won 66 games. They had a 20-game winning streak at one point.
And they just rolled through the playoffs.
They swept the Baltimore Bullets in the finals. So in his second year in the league, he's a champion and a finals MVP.
He was the king of the NBA instantly. But something else happened in 1971. Something personal that changed how the public saw him, maybe forever.
The name.
The name.
Yes. He had converted to Islam back in 1968. He took the Shahada, but he went public with his new name the day after they won the title in 1971. He became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Which means noble one, servant of the Almighty.
And if we dig a little deeper into the source material, this wasn't just about religion for him, it was about heritage. He traced his family history back to slaves, brought over by a French planter whose name was Alcindor. His people were Yoruba, from what is now Nigeria. He felt that keeping the name Alcindor was honoring the slave master who owned his ancestors.
So taking the name Kareem was reclaiming his identity.
Exactly. It was a deeply personal and political act.
How did the public take it? I imagine in 1971 that was complicated.
Complicated is putting it mildly. It eroded his image in white America significantly. He was viewed with suspicion. People called it un-American. It added to this feeling of isolation he already had.
And he's in Milwaukee.
He's in Milwaukee. He's the best player in the world, but he felt like a stranger in the city he played for. And that isolation eventually let him out, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He won 3 MVPs there, but by 1974, he won it out.
Yeah, he was polite about it, but firm. He told the management that the Midwest just didn't fit his cultural needs. He wanted to go to a bigger city, either New York or LA. He needed to be somewhere where he could just be Kareem.
And so in 1975, the mega trade happened. He goes to the Lakers.
And this starts the era that most people remember, but looking at the notes here, it wasn't instant showtime, was it?
Not at all. And this is a really forgotten chapter of his career. He won his 4th MVP in his very first season in LA, but the team missed the playoffs.
How does that even happen? The MVP's team misses the playoffs.
It's this weird irony. He was so individually dominant, leading the league in rebounding and blocks, but the team around him just wasn't good enough yet. They were good, but they weren't great.
And during this time, I want to circle back to the physical toll. We mentioned the scratched cornea in college, but in the pros, it got worse. The goggles, Kareem's trademark, they weren't a fashion statement.
No, they were survival gear. He was constantly getting poked and scraped in the eyes.
Yeah.
In 1974, before the trade, he got poked so bad he got angry and just punched the basket support stanchion, broke 2 bones in his hand. Then, in 1977, his second year with the Lakers, he gets elbowed by Kent Benson, a rookie. And Kareem just snaps. He turns and punches him. 1 punch.
Broke his hand again.
Broke his hand again. Out for 2 months. It was a real low point. He realized he couldn't keep reacting like that, and he couldn't keep risking his eyes. He started wearing the goggles permanently around 1980 after yet another eye injury from Rudy Tomjanovich.
So, late 70s, the Lakers are struggling to get over the hump. And then 1979 happens. The Lakers draft a guy named Earvin Magic Johnson.
And this is the dynamic shift. This is the catalyst for everything. You have Kareem, the stoic, serious, intellectual captain, and you have Magic, the smiling, high-fiving, ebullient rookie.
This is the ultimate odd couple.
It really was. Magic tells these great stories about trying to get Kareem to high-five him, and Kareem would just look at him like he had 3 heads. But on the court, it was perfect. Magic brought the flash, Kareem brought the consistency.
And it paid off immediately. The 1980 finals is such a famous moment, but usually it's framed as the Magic Johnson game.
Right. Everyone remembers Game 6, where Magic, as a rookie, played center. But people forget why he played center.
Because Kareem was completely dominant?
He dominated that series. He was averaging over 33 points. In Game 5, he sprained his ankle horribly. It was a nasty roll, should have been a season-ending injury for anyone else.
But he didn't check out.
He went back to the locker room, got it taped up, came back out, and scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to win the game for them. He scored 40 points in that game on basically one leg.
So he wins the game, but the ankle is just too swollen for Game 6.
Correct. He couldn't even get on the plane to Philadelphia. So Magic famously fills in at center, has a legendary game, wins the title, and gets the Finals MVP. But that ring does not happen without Kareem's Herculean effort in the first 5 games.
This kicks off the Showtime era, 5 titles in the 80s. But I want to fast forward a bit to 1985, because this, to me, is the most fascinating part of his psychology in his career.
The redemption.
The redemption. Kareem is 38 years old. In basketball years, that's ancient. People are calling him washed up. He'd just broken Wilt's scoring record the year before, but the narrative was that he was fading.
And in Game 1 of the Finals against their rivals, the Boston Celtics.
It was a disaster, the Memorial Day massacre. The Lakers lost 148-14. It was a total humiliation. Kareem was terrible. 12 points, 3 rebounds. He was getting run off the court by Robert Parrish.
The media buried him. They said he was done. Old man Kareem. The headlines were brutal.
And this is where we see the character of the man. The next day, in the film session, Coach Pat Riley is just tearing into the team. And usually, Kareem, the captain, sits in the back.
But not this time.
No. This time, he walked right to the front row and sat down. He took every single bit of criticism. He didn't make excuses. He basically signaled to the entire team, this is on me, I'll fix it.
And there's that other great story about the team bus to Game 2.
Yes. Riley had this strict rule. No family on the team bus. It was a sanctuary, a workspace. But before Game 2, Kareem quietly goes up to Riley and asks if his father could ride with them to the arena.
A 38-year-old man, the greatest scorer ever, asking if his dad can come to work.
It just grounds him. It's such a human moment. And Riley, seeing the weight Kareem was carrying, he breaks his own rule. Kareem's dad gets on the bus.
And in Game 2,
Kareem explodes. 30 points, 17 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 blocks. The Lakers win the game, and eventually they win the series in Boston, which they'd never done.
And he wins Finals MVP at 38 years old,
Wow.
the oldest ever.
It was a complete reinvention. He proved that he wasn't just hanging on. He was still the best player on the floor when it mattered most.
So how did he do it? I mean, how do you play at that level at 38, 39, 40 years old? Most guys' knees are dust by then.
This deep dive into his regimen is so fascinating because he was decades ahead of his time. He started doing yoga in 1976.
1976. Yoga was definitely not a standard NBA workout then. That was seen as, like, hippie stuff.
Totally. It was considered weird, but he said it himself, there is no way I could have played as long as I did without yoga. It gave him flexibility and injury prevention when everyone else was just lifting heavy weights and getting stiff.
And then there's the Bruce Lee connection.
Yes. This is one of the coolest parts of his story. He studied Jeet Kune Do with Bruce Lee in Los Angeles.
What did he learn from him?
Lee taught him about economy of motion, about discipline, and about the spirituality of martial arts. That idea of not wasting a single movement.
Economy of motion makes so much sense when you watch Kareem play. He never looked like he was rushing or panicking.
He actually had a great quote about that. He described playing 42 minutes a night as being like mowing a huge estate lawn. I love that analogy. Explain that.
He said, if you rush out and run furiously with the mower, you'll be exhausted before you even finish the first acre. You have to pace yourself. You have to be efficient.
So what did that look like on the court?
Sometimes he would be the last player up the court. He'd wait in the backcourt to see if the Lakers scored on a fast break. If they did, great. He saved the energy of sprinting down the floor. If they didn't, he'd just trot down and set up in the post.
That's work smarter, not harder at the Hall of Fame level.
It's what allowed him to play 20 seasons. He played 5,560 games. He broke the record for minutes played. You don't do that by sprinting every single possession.
We have to talk about the skyhook specifically. You mentioned earlier it was unsexy, but mechanically, why was it unstoppable? I feel like people know what it is, but not why it worked so well.
It's simple physics and geometry, really. Kareem is 7'2". He has incredibly long arms. When he shoots the skyhook, he isn't shooting from his chest or his forehead like a normal jump shot. He is extending his arm fully straight up.
So the release point is, what, 10, 11 feet in the air?
Easily. And here is the key. He's doing it from the side with his entire body width between the defender and the ball. He's also using his off arm to legally shield the defender. So to even get close to blocking it, you'd have to be 8 feet tall or basically jump through his body, which is a foul.
And he could shoot it from a distance. This wasn't just a little baby hook next to the rim.
That's the thing people forget. He could hit that shot from 16 feet out. That's a mid-range jumper for most guys. For him, it was just a hook shot. It was rhythmic, it was automatic, and it was completely demoralizing for defenses. You could play perfect defense on him, and he would just drop it right over your head. Nothing you could do.
Let's pivot to his personality. Because for a long, long time, the knock on Kareem was that he was surly. He was difficult.
He was, and he admits it in his later writings. He was introverted by nature, and he was deeply suspicious of the media because, they had been prying into his life since he was a teenager. He saw everyone as wanting something from him.
There's that famous story Magic Johnson tells about asking for an autograph when he was a kid.
Right. Magic was a kid from Lansing, Michigan, years before they were teammates, saw his hero, asked for an autograph, and Kareem just brushed him off. That reputation stuck with him for decades.
And it had real consequences.
It did. It actually hurt him later in life when he wanted to coach. He couldn't get a head coaching job at UCLA or with the Bucks because owners and athletic directors thought he couldn't handle the PR side of things, the glad handing.
But he also had this incredible sense of humor that people didn't really see until later. I mean, we have to talk about the movie Airplane.
The role of Roger Murdoch, the co-pilot. It's comedy gold.
It is, and it works so well because he is in on the joke. The little kid in the movie recognizes him and says, "Wait a minute, you're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. My dad says you don't work hard on defense."
And Kareem just snaps.
He breaks character, grabs the kid by his shirt, and says, "Tell your old man to drag Walton and Lanier up and down the court for 48 minutes. It was his way of clapping back at all the critics who called him lazy, but doing it in a way that showed he could laugh at himself.
And then, he collapses at the controls later, and he's wearing his Lakers shorts and goggles underneath the pilot uniform. It's just brilliant.
He also fought Bruce Lee in Game of Death.
Which is an iconic visual, the 7'2" giant in the sunglasses versus the compact martial artist in the yellow jumpsuit. It just cemented him as a true pop culture figure, not just an athlete.
And more recently, he's been in the writer's room. He wrote for the show Veronica Mars.
Yes. In the 2019 revival, he was a legitimate staff writer. He's a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. He's written a whole series of novels about Mycroft Holmes, Sherlock's older brother.
This is what I mean by Renaissance giant. The guy is breaking scoring records and then going home to write Victorian mystery novels. It's an incredible range.
And he's a serious historian. He's written best-selling books on African-American achievements, the Harlem Renaissance, the 761st Tank Battalion from World War II. He isn't just a celebrity putting his name on a ghost-written book. He is the intellectual force behind these works.
He was even a U.S. Global Cultural Ambassador.
Appointed by Hillary Clinton in 2012. And he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama in 2016. It's an absolutely incredible second act to his life.
But we should also mention, it hasn't been all smooth sailing. His health has been a real battleground for him.
It really has. We talked about the eyes. But later in life, he's dealt with debilitating migraines, for which he was an early advocate for medical cannabis use.
Right.
But then the serious stuff started. Diagnosed with a form of leukemia CML in 2008, quadruple bypass surgery in 2015, a prostate cancer diagnosis he revealed in 2020, and then atrial fibrillation in 2023.
That is a lot for one body to take.
It is. But he's approached it with that same quiet discipline he used in basketball. He's spoken openly about it, trying to raise awareness, especially for African-American men who are at higher risk for some of these conditions. He continues to use his platform to, try and save lives.
And then we saw him pass the torch. February 2023. LeBron James breaks the scoring record.
A record that so many people thought would stand forever.
And Kareem was there, in the arena.
He was. And honestly, looking at the footage, you could see the growth in him as a person. If this had happened 20 years ago, maybe he would have been bitter. Maybe he wouldn't have shown up. But he was so gracious, he handed the ball to LeBron. He celebrated him.
It felt like a completion of the circle. The angry young man had become the wise elder statesman.
It did. Pat Riley, his old coach, had a great quote about him recently. He said, "Why judge anymore? When a man has broken records, won championships, endured tremendous criticism and responsibility, why judge? Let's toast him as the greatest player ever."
That's powerful coming from Riley, who has coached Magic, Wade, Shaq, a whole roster of legends.
And Riley still maintains that Kareem is the greatest because of that longevity and because of that one unstoppable weapon.
So what does this all mean for us? Why does Kareem's story matter today, beyond the stats and the trophies?
I think it matters because Kareem represents the long game.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world of instant gratification, viral highlights, and very quick peaks. Kareem is the opposite of that. He has sustained excellence over 20 years.
He's the slow burn.
He's the slow burn. He is intellectual depth. He is standing up for your principles, even when it costs you popularity, even when it costs you endorsement deals.
Then adapting. From the dunk band forcing him to create the skyhook, to the goggles, to the yoga, he never stayed stagnant.
Exactly. He never stopped evolving. He started as a physical marvel, became a technical master, and ended up as a cultural sage.
It really makes you rethink how we evaluate greatness, doesn't it?
It does. It absolutely does.
Which brings me to a final thought for you listening. When we talk about the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the conversation usually revolves around Jordan's competitive fire or LeBron's all-around brilliance. But consider this. Kareem dominated high school, college, and the pros at a level that is, frankly, unparalleled. They literally changed the rules of the sport to stop him. And it didn't work.
And he did it for 2 decades.
2 full decades. So here is the question. Is it possible that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is actually underrated in the GOAT conversation simply because he made the impossible look boring?
Because he made it look like mowing the lawn.
Exactly. Because he made it look routine. Because it wasn't a highlight reel dunk. It was just 2 points. Again and again and again. Something to chew on. Thanks for diving in with us.
A real pleasure.
See you next time.